Welcome to the Carr Brothers with Jeff, Jack, and Jody Carr. They talk about current events, politics, community, and business. Take it away, boys.
Good evening. How is everyone tonight? Thank you for joining us. It's Jeff and Jody here, the two of the three Carr brothers, of course. Jode, how are you?
I'm good. We're going to have a great show tonight. So if people are interested to hear about Jeff's news announced this week.
And I think most people have heard some portion of it. Of course, on social media, we've shared my letter to constituents and to the Premier and to my colleagues. And of course, CBC and the Telegraph did a couple.
We're live. We're live on Facebook Live. We're also live on CHCO satellite TV, and New Brunswick's only independent channel.
That's right.
And we are looking for your comments and questions on the chat for Facebook on Facebook Live. So make your comments in there. Yeah,
and we know some people already commented on our video this afternoon that they want to hear the rest of the story, and I don't think we'll go 100% into the whole story, but I think it's.
We should say though, if people that maybe are out there watching that don't quite realize, you announced this week that you're not reoffering in the next election,
right?
And after 10 years elected in the legislature, and at least 10 years prior to that, involved with the party and involved with me as well. What brought you to this decision?
Well, like you say, I think I became involved, really heavily involved in your 99 election. We worked on that one, and then I got on your riding board of directors, and then provincial council. So all riding presidents sit on provincial council, then executive council as a regional VP. So that was I did that for quite a while, 10 years. Probably you're right.
Yeah.
And, at the end of that 10 years was 4 years with you as an executive assistant. And then I got elected after Jack decided not to run after 6 years. Jack stepped away to pursue real estate, as we know. So then here I am. And most people know that history, I think, that follow along. Of course, we had a little bit of, I would say, a kerfuffle on the inside of caucus last spring. And some of us weren't happy about the process that was followed or not, and that's no secret. That's was very public at the time, and a group of us voted with an opposition motion. And for anybody that doesn't understand motions and legislation, you do very well, but opposition motions or even private members' motions are non-binding on the government, right? Yep. And I mean, we've tabled lots of motions in opposition, but they are non-binding on the government. So a number of us, I think there were 6 of us, voted with the opposition to ask for more in-depth study or consultation on that policy 713, which talks about gender in schools, the use of different pronouns, changing their names in schools. So basically the policy sets a minimum age. And I spoke. I did one interview, I think, during that process with a few media outlets. I was out in the rotunda scrumming on a bill. Excuse me, and they asked me about it. And trying to make a long story short here, but we always felt as representative of communities that the majority of the public need to look after the minority groups. That's our role, and that's the role of legislators as well. So knowing that when you start talking about legislation or policy that affects minorities, that it can be very sensitive, right? Same way and I use the analogy, if you're speaking about people with disabilities, they automatically think you're taking rights away or legislation away or you're weakening. So anyway,
it's a
6 of us.
Very contentious issue.
Very contentious issue, and just thought was going a little too quick. wanted to have more in-depth study, wanted advice from Child and Youth Advocate, wanted to see if there is a way to get legal advice on it. Hadn't seen any of that. Anyway, the motion passed, and it was sent to the Child and Youth Advocate for further review. And we had Kelly on here a couple weeks ago, and he knows the stuff around that. Yeah. But it was considered that we were considered to not be upholding cabinet solidarity. Considered
by the Premier.
Right.
Yeah. So now the Premier considered that you broke, which is debatable.
It is.
But he made a choice that he didn't think he wanted you in cabinet any longer. That's his choice. And a bunch of you others either had left or you were removed from cabinet.
So at the time I had said, I guess the day after I was removed from cabinet, and I know everybody would have heard this that is paying attention, and it was several months ago, but I said at the time that if Blaine was still the leader, and I was asked in the scrum if I would run for Blaine, and I said no then.
Yeah.
And I think for me it was a matter of when I would decide to officially say I wasn't reoffering, right? Mm-hmm. And despite just about every event you go to in the riding, people are asking you, stay on. They want, so it wasn't a matter of people wanting you or not wanting you. I just kind of reading a couple of the comments. People really want you to stay regardless. And I had made this statement then. I think it could have changed somehow, but time has passed.
Was there any effort to try to mend fences, make things better, on the Premier's part, to you in particular? You were a very popular MLA. It's the first time in 30 years a Carr won't be on the ballot in the next election. Did he make any attempt to make any amends?
Well, there was an email last August to the six of us.
So nothing really concrete then?
No, there was an email from the Premier and reaching out to us individually, and we said at the time, well, I think we'd rather sit with you as a group, group of six, and discuss, this and sort it out. And time just, I guess, got by. Passed by, and so no, not really since then. We never, it's an awkward situation when something like that happens, I think, inside a caucus, and never really got spoken about again. So here we are now, and I look back on the 10 years of being elected and how things have changed with politics. Like it's, social media has made politics much different. It just makes you busier.
Yeah,
that's all, because you have more access. People have more access to you, which is what we want anyhow. You want people to be able to have access. So, I made the decision. I just didn't know when I was going to decide on an official statement. And sometimes, and this is no slight to you or our good friend Trevor, but sometimes people stay longer than they should, right? Like, when it's time. Well, when it's time.
That's why I left when I left, because there were other things I wanted to do, and I was telling people, the next election will be 19 years. And as I said that out loud, I'm like, 19 years, that's a long time. It's time to step out for now, do something else. And yours was 10, and
Jack was
actually
6.
any more than 4 is actually quite phenomenal nowadays.
It is. So it is. But if you're doing your work locally and do the best that you can. You can't. And the thing is, it's harder to fix things now.
And if Trevor runs again, I think Trevor would be elected. So it's kind of like
for sure
people, and you would be reelected, likely, because you're a constituent MLA and someone that works for everyone. Your heart's there. Your best interest. That's what people have said. A lot of comments. And you speak your mind, and I'm really proud of you for what the job you did in terms of standing for what was right. And what was right was people deserve to have a say, and people deserve to be heard, and people deserve to be represented. And that's what you aren't scared to do, is represent everyone. No. If there's an issue, you bring it to the table and let's talk about it.
Yeah, and that's what, it's great to be in cabinet. It was a wonderful experience, especially this last time at transportation. But when you join cabinet, you really lose that voice. You do, you know. You lose that voice, and you don't have that ability, that latitude to speak on behalf of your constituents. And I just like to be able to speak on behalf of my constituents.
Well, it's so funny because I just can't help it. There's comments about the big pension.
I
wasn't going to mention it, but
too.
it just reminds me of Charles LeBlanc, you know. But you know, they say you have this big pension, but
Teddy McCuddy, whoever you might be, never heard of you before, but anyhow, welcome to the show, Teddy. Would you like to come on live, maybe?
Well, that'd be interesting.
So anyhow, so there used to be a pretty decent pension one time, I think, and we all called it gold plated, and I don't know what the amounts were back in the day, but it's changed so much over time, and brought us more in line with a pension that civil servants would earn, right?
Yeah, well, certainly your pension is not more in line; it is in line with.
Well, it's exactly identical,
like when the shared risk came in. So
right. So that was done in around 2013, 14 when it changed. When I started, I knew what I was signing up for. I knew I was signing up for a reduced pension.
Yeah. But bottom line is you don't get involved with it for the pension. There are benefits. That's great. Yeah. I'm happy for any benefit I've received. But
well, you serve your time. You trade your time for it.
When you first, as you say, you get in. You don't get into to serve for your pension.
No, and I'm only 53, so I'm going to work a long time yet before I am eligible to draw a pension. I think you have to be 65 before you can take.
There's still people that think that I actually draw a pension, because that used to be the old rule. You used to have to work 10 years so you could draw a pension right away. Well, that got changed in 1995, 30 years ago. But
and they could then, right? But they served 10. If you served 10 years, you received a full pension. You could draw it right away, I think. Yeah. Back in those days.
Yeah.
And then it switched 8 years. You could serve 8 years.
Yeah. And then you get your pension when you're 60 or something like that.
Right.
And then it changed, and then now it's.
Now we're on shared risk, so we contribute identically as the civil service does, and we draw it out at 65. I don't know if you can take it earlier with penalty, probably. Yeah. But anyhow, Teddy, there's your
I know.
There's your information.
Everyone's in a different job for different things.
Well, it is. But the thing with the pension is that most people don't realize it changed.
Oh, no.
Right?
No, they still think.
Even though there was a big blow up at the time because the civil service was being moved over into shared risk, and a lot of the UMB moved to shared risk and different places like that. So it is what it is. So.
Yeah. But what are you most proud of in the 10 years? You had some major accomplishments. What can you think back? What are some of the things you're happy about?
I talked about I interviewed a couple times yesterday, and that was some of the questions that were asked. Apart from, I would say, paving or chip sealing. So between the 10 years I was there and the 4 years working for you, we probably paved or chip sealed most of Sunbury County, or most of the riding at least. And there's more coming this year, and there will be more to do all as time goes on. But there was a lot of infrastructure needs in the riding, and I said to the reporters, like, we've had some phenomenal MLAs that came before me, going way back to the 90s, and then before that was Horace Smith. But after that was, different MLAs that made different things happen. The Sunbury West School was renovated and expanded. The Gary School was replaced brand new by you as the Minister of Education at the time. And then we had Keith Ashfield was in there as well, who did a lot of work, and the riding was different then. I think he had Lincoln in there as well, and he did a lot of work in Lincoln. Then Jack was elected for 6 years. The challenge for Jack and Keith during their time is they were members of very large caucuses. I think you guys would have had over 40 seats each time when you started out. So to spread that capital budget over that many people is not easy.
Well, it's hard to compare because there's different times. I hate comparing you and Jack,
Well, I'm not comparing me and Jack.
No, but Jack and I always get compared. That's why I'm joking.
Right.
But it's different times that you were elected with different governments, different priorities, as well as you and he had different priorities. He worked a lot on provincial kind of policy things and Lyme disease.
I just fell into a good opportunity.
Well, and then you were the minister, and also you're very well known to get projects completed.
Yeah.
You've worked for the Village of Hope, big projects there, the watershed projects there.
That would be one of my...
Your main thing is for infrastructure for the riding.
Well, one of the issues with infrastructure in the riding is we saw some pretty major flooding happen.
Yeah.
Since I was elected, we lost a cover bridge. We lost that a cover bridge. We had countless times where Hoyt and Wirral, parts of Russia-Gornish and Blissful would not be able to get in and out of their communities because of water. So I wanted to go to work right away, and some culverts would wash out every election or every storm. The same pipes would wash out, and they just wouldn't get fixed properly. So I just took it on as a challenge to get a lot of that stuff done. Now you can get in and out of Hoyt through the Duplessis Road. Most of the time it's upgraded. Into Sunpoke through the DeWitt and different things like that. And now currently working on Route 645 and the Palatoma Lake Road. Because more and more people are moving out in those areas all the time, right? So they need safe access for ambulance, service, fire. And it's a long ways out to get out to Palatoma. Yeah. And that road just didn't have attention because it didn't need attention back then.
What was it? There was an issue, one of these storms, and just recently, in the last 6 months or a year, the power went out, but the cable went out, and then the telephone went out, and the towers were down.
Like December 18th.
And then I was talking to you. I'm like, well, what's the big deal? And you're like, well, people can't even use the cell phone.
This is
what's happening, and the landlines. Yeah, and so you're like, they're out here in some of these communities.
Yeah,
there could be a major EMO safety and health issue. Right. So I know you were on hours to EMO and actually go visit the
talk to EMO, and then Roger Nason played a big part out in the junction,
looking for generators. I know, because there was also fearful that the ice would be lost.
Going to lose its ice. Legion Estates had no power, so there are people living there. There's 10 units there, so people living there with no heat. And Roger played a big role in the fire department. And DTI crew were out the first 2 nights, like 24 hours, cutting trees off roads. And then in the village of Tracy, Beth Nason is their EMO coordinator there, and Dale Morey, the mayor there, was out helping. So it is an anxious time when either you can't get in and out because of floods, snowstorms, or in this case a windstorm, and then people were stealing the wires from the bell wires, so that just landlines were down. It was just a bad time. So we had a big meeting with the 2 mayors, and the fire chief was there, Timmy Donovan, Roger was there, Beth, and people from EMO were there, and we just wanted to talk about like how do we you can't prevent a storm, but how do you react to it better? And they did a pretty good job, but there's always things to do. Yeah. But my other biggest accomplishment, I will say this. When we were in opposition, the Glant government decided they were going to take the power pole contract from Marwood. Yes. Remember?
Yes.
And I raised hell over that.
Was I sitting there with you?
You were up in the front corner there.
Because that was my first. Well, yeah.
And, it was a long time contract. You can argue sole source or not in the province of New Brunswick, but when you have only one company that provides that particular service or that goods, which is pressure-treated poles, and you can make the business case to government or to MB Power that the economic spin-offs of buying locally like that is
because they basically
and they had for years.
They were awarding the contract, or they already awarded it at a province, or they were going to.
Yeah, so it was a company that I think they were bringing the poles out of Nova Scotia, but the company was owned out of a company in Quebec.
Out of Quebec.
Remember?
Yeah.
And that was a big.
So did you get involved to help get that
relooked at? So I made a big noise about it at the time, as you know, and that didn't change anything. But we made a big noise, and the ownership of Marwood came in and met with me and the now premier, but Blaine at the time, and we talked about the issues. And like the 2018 election kicked off at Marwood. And part of our platform at the time was New Brunswick Jobs First, right?
Yeah.
And that's how that spun into how do we make sure that more New Brunswick companies that provide that service
get local preference.
Get local preference
on the RFPs or tenders.
And you know, it's being done now. It's being done now
yeah.
with snowplows, because remember Craig and Heartland lost snowplow contracts to go back.
Oh yeah.
And just having that
Little extra
work done here in the province, you're paying people that live here. They're buying sleds, they're buying ATVs or whatever. They're buying their groceries here. They're buying houses here, and they just live here and they're spending their money here, and you get that back in taxes.
Yeah.
So that was a pretty big deal. That, and of course, like you say, the small stuff. You know, constituency files that it's private information with individuals, but there's a lot of things you can't do too for people, and you try.
Well, you try.
And then obviously the Village of Hope project, which is a big deal. We were able to help them get a fair chunk of money over the last couple of years to help build ladies' housing there now, because they've expanded that program and put a foundation in the ground for a new multi-purpose center, I guess you'd call it. Do great work. And if they can reach more people and they can help more people get off of addictions and get clear of addictions, and they do it through their faith, through the Lord, it's just all the way around better for everybody.
What are the projects? What are the projects? Because there's always projects, but what are the projects basically at the top of your list right now that you want to see a future government, future MLA tackle? That needs to be addressed in the greater Oromocto, Fredericton, and why?
One of the big announcements that just happened is a 60-bed nursing home in Oromocto.
Right.
And that was, there will be a chapter on that in the book someday too, on how that really came about and who we have to really thank for that at another point in time. But that's a big one. But to see that to come to fruition is going to be intricate as well. It's not, the shovels aren't in the ground yet. We expect them to be in the ground really, I think this summer. Jason's probably going to, he'll want to start at it and get it built. Yeah. Jason Lee is the operator, owns Enhanced Homes in Oromocto. But there's more paving and chip seal that's coming this summer, and there's a couple bridges on the list that need to be done. So the one over on Route 101 has got to be replaced. The Junction Bridge is being refurbished, and the Tracy Bridge will need some decking on it and whatnot. But the new road in Gary,
tell us about that.
Is top priority.
Terry Gallant is asking.
Yeah, Terry, of course. So when I went in the cabinet last time in DTI, that particular road wasn't in a capital budget, but I had money set aside to do that project. The tenders are ready to go out. Should have been done last summer. I don't know how much money it's going to take for it, but it's well over $1 million.
It would be.
Because it's got to be rebuilt.
It should have been rebuilt when we last chip sealed it. It should have been rebuilt.
Well, it lasted 10 years after it was chip sealed.
Yeah.
But anyhow, we can't change that past. When I left cabinet, that money moved somewhere else.
Political.
So
yeah.
We'll be watching for that. It was on my request list. The Branch Road is on the list. The rest of 101's paved this summer. It's on the list to go all the way down to South Oromocto Lake Road. So, but housing is a huge issue. We need more housing. So the Gary Lions Club is working on a
proposal.
They have been working on a proposal. Stacy Antoniuk has been working tirelessly at this thing, and the red tape is killing us. The bureaucracy is killing us on this stuff.
Money being left on the table
tough.
there. Why?
It's hard, but you have to keep at it, and Stacy and Tim are going to keep at it, and I'll be paying attention to it.
Yeah, because you're still the MLA to the election,
yep.
Which is expected, guaranteed it'll be October. I guess it could happen anytime still. But
and we like to do something in Fredericton Junction as well, and they've been talking about special care home beds there,
right.
But to find an operator that wants to foot that bill is difficult because the government doesn't build that infrastructure. They'll pay the per diems on the beds, right?
Yep.
So you need
upfront investors.
You need some investors that'll do that, and then some other low income seniors housing in the Junction would be good too.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep our eye on some of that stuff.
Now your constituency has a lot of students that travel into Oromocto at the high school. Now, that Oromocto High School was on the list when I left politics in 2018. It was actually on the capital improvement list in 14 as a rebuild, as a midlife upgrade.
Midlife upgrade.
And it was on the priority list as a midlife upgrade, and then priority settings got changed and Hanwell got built.
A couple times
at least. And you've been there trying to get it even though, your riding isn't Ormucto, but you have students that come here. What's the status there? Are you able to make any movement on that? Or should the next MLA get something moving? Like, what the heck?
Well, it's going to be, it's not on this capital budget at the top, but now that so those I guess you call it a QBL, it's quantified, it's however they,
Oh, yeah.
But once those projects are on
No
the
one
list
believes
now,
that they're actually that.
well, I never
credible,
did
but
believe that
no,
it was.
but
they never go down now. So that list has been changed so that once a project gets on that list, it can only go up once the ones ahead of it are done. It can't go back down anymore because that's how it used to bounce up and down based on the needs, right?
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
And the reason why they're telling us that it was bounced before is because of population growth. So if your Fredericton schools are overcrowded and you have more and more portables, it's a security issue to have those kids out in portables, apparently.
But that's why we set a special program for midlife upgrade.
Right, and Bill Hogan and I have talked about that.
Like Fredericton High School
agrees.
is on a midlife upgrade.
Yes.
Or Mucto, Thomas Albert, a lot of those high schools. And if it's like the roads, right? If you don't fix it at a particular point, you're going to have to replace it completely.
Yeah. Well, that's the fear now.
Yeah.
If we wait much longer, we're going to need to build a new Mucto High School.
Oh yeah, and then
Which maybe that's the way to go.
that's certainly what the government's asking for, I guess.
Maybe that's the way to go. But now there have been a fair amount of improvements in the school. Like the changing rooms at the gym have now had work started on them. I think one is completed, and they might be working on the other one now. A lot of electrical upgrades have happened.
A lot of roof upgrades.
So a lot of roof upgrades.
Of
So it's the gym itself now, I think, is probably the major need. It needs the upgrade, but as far as so what it seems like, the district and the department, rather than waiting for that midlife to get up there, they just keep picking at the needs within the big package.
Yeah.
So
that's what they were doing before, and that's why it is.
but we'll have to keep an eye on it. But now there's Policy 409's kicked in for like every school in Ormucto almost. All the middle schools, all the Ks.
So school utilization review of all the schools?
The 2 middle schools, the 4 elementary schools, and the Burton Elementary School are all being analyzed now to see, do we close 4 or 5 and build 2 brand new ones type of thing. There's 3 different options there, but,
they were all built,
but there's needs in the 50s.
They were all built when the town was developed in 1950.
Yeah, and we saw what happened to Hubbard Elementary. It's empty now because it's just run down and the piping's no good. And I think the town owns that now, so that's great.
Looking at a regional wellness center facility.
So there's lots happening, lots to go on, and we're just about at it. Well, we got a few minutes, but was able to help the Manor and the Junction obtain some funding to do phase 1 of their renovation expansion, and they're going to do, I think, a community room or community use room first of all, an activity room. Work at that, but we'll have more details on that.
And we didn't even get into
days ahead.
We didn't even get into like the behind the scenes stories, any big drama.
Well, there's been no big drama lately. It's just been
pretty steady.
Just going, working ahead. And
when does the legislature open?
March 19th, the budget will be tabled.
And do we know any idea about this budget? Will we have to wait and see if everyone's on side? We don't know yet.
Well, I don't see, based on our past budgets, I don't see an issue with this one.
Yeah,
really.
Financially things are decent, but I don't like seeing such a large surplus. Like the real ultra conservatives want to see extra money, but people have to live too. So I mean, there's lots to debate, and I guess we'll see that in the legislature when the legislature comes up.
Yeah, for sure. I think you've seen a lot less surplus this year. I think because a lot has been spent in year in healthcare.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't see it or feel it.
Yeah.
But I know Fitchie has been spending a lot of money in the healthcare sector. And capital budget's always over budget.
Yeah.
We're always overspending in transportation. So, and the social development and housing needs are huge. And I know Jill has spent a lot of money on homelessness and overnight shelters and things. So it gets used up.
Yeah.
And the in-year programs too. So what's he telling us now? Or was it going to be an hour? Pat's wondering.
Oh, we can go an hour.
We can go a little longer if you don't mind, Pat. If you can't keep us on the TV air, maybe you just let us go on Facebook.
Because there's definitely more questions. One was, let me just go then to some of our questions on Facebook.
Questions.
Yeah, we're going to shut this down.
Yeah, let's do this.
Well, I got one right here. How has the 2024 riding changed for what you previously had. So there's new boundaries.
How much? Yes, there will be new boundaries in this election. So the boundaries remain the same now until the election happens in the fall,
Right.
or whenever it's going to
Okay.
be. And by legislation, our riding boundaries have to be reviewed every 10 years,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Based on population moves. So I'll give an example of New Maryland-Sunbury. The benchmark or the magic number of electors in each riding are supposed to be around 11,300
Right.
voters.
Yeah. Because if you
Per riding.
Yeah, you separate
Right.
49 ridings,
Right.
and they say every riding should have basically the same number of
And that's plus or minus so much percentage.
Right.
My riding had ended up being the second highest, and some were smaller.
Yeah.
Right.
Just
So
for
I had,
migration, even in 10 years,
yeah.
it's shifted quite a bit.
I had almost 17,000, I believe, is the number.
And is that Hanwell? No, because you weren't in
No,
Hanwell, but
just
just
over to Bishop Drive.
Rishigournish, but Bishop Drive. Okay.
So Bishop Drive is blown up,
Okay.
and the Rishigournish-Wassas area has grown exponentially. And there's some new home builds too in different places. A couple subdivisions in Gary, but
So
so that every 10 years that has to be reanalyzed,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
there's a commission that's put in place of people from outside of government. Each party appoints so many couple people or whatever,
Well,
and
just-
they do the travel and roadshow.
just as an example, from when I got elected
Remember
to
when
when I
you got-
stopped getting elected, it was my riding had changed 3 times.
Yes.
So I was in 3 different ridings from Evandale Ferry all the way to the Princess Margaret Bridge.
Right.
It just keeps changing. And yours changed.
Well, when I started in
Maryland.
2014, I took Gary from
No,
you.
mine changed more. No, I'm just joking.
No, but really,
Yes,
you
that's-
lost Gary into my
went,
riding.
Yeah, Gary went to New Maryland and Pring Junction,
Yeah.
and so this time
Gary's going back.
Gary's coming back to Ormocto
Yeah.
with with Hoyt and Whirl and a big part of Rishigournish, and you actually 40% of the kind of current New Maryland-Sunbury riding is coming into Ormocto.
No,
No, not 40.
40's going to Hamwell. 50's going to Ormocto.
50. Okay,
Yeah.
50%. Half of your riding is going to.
So
okay.
it'll be split. So the new Ormocto Sunbury, I think it's called Sunbury Ormocto, is the town of Ormocto. Burton will now be back in Ormocto.
Yeah, should have never been changed.
No, half of Rishigournish, so the Wilsey Road and the Post Road is this divider.
Okay.
So everything on the Ormocto side of the Wilsey and the Post will be with Ormocto. Gary will go into Ormocto. Hoyt, Blissful, Whirl, and South Ormocto Lake will all be with Ormocto, Burton,
Yeah.
Gary.
Yeah.
It's big.
It's going to be pretty large.
It
It is pretty large.
Big rural area.
When you think it's basically the old Ormocto Gary Burton, which had
half of
been
Rishigournish.
plus 50% of your old riding, which includes half of Rishigournish, Gary, Lincoln, and Hoyt.
And I think
so-
it takes in Lincoln up as far as the Nevers Road.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So that's huge.
Yep.
It's a big job.
And then the New Maryland riding will take in Fergus Junction, half of Rishigournish, Charter
Tracy,
Settlement,
yeah, all in the
and
Route
Tracy,
101.
and then into New Maryland, and also Hanwell.
Hamwell.
And that's
up
huge
as
in
far,
itself.
and Yoho Lake goes in there. And then up as far as Longs Creek. So that's another large riding. So
And then when you get further out into the so-called more rural areas, you're going to have the same population that those MLAs will serve, but they're going to be even larger geographically
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. So it's people say 49 are too many MLAs. I don't think so. I personally don't. I don't know what you think, but
I don't think there's enough now because of population growth. Our population's grown 80,000 people.
true. That's been an accomplishment.
And their pay's been frozen since '08. So, and one thing that has been a benefit for us though, is that we've been able to our constituency assistants were always almost part-time hours, and they're the people that answer the phone when we're not there, right?
It makes
So
me
they're
laugh.
able to now. The legislature decided last year, like the Legislative Administration Committee decided that those people would be paid a decent minimum a wage. It's not minimum wage, but a locked-in rate. It's over
an administrative assistant wage comparable
yes,
to someone in government,
yes,
probably.
and a minimum number of hours. I think it's 40 hours.
Yeah.
So that's been the biggest increase for any of us, but that's been the most important, I think, is our assistant.
I think so. They're the glue in the constituency.
Yeah.
You have Roseanne Smith.
Roseanne is mine, yes, and she does a great job.
Yeah. I had Mark Granter for a number of years in my riding, but people will know that name. But so it was very big changes. So
Very big.
again, I don't know. It just seems like yesterday that they had the last change, and then you have the federal change, and I think people can get really disenfranchised or disconnected. And the people in the center that just write on a map and change the boundaries, they don't realize how intimate their politicians are with their communities.
I know.
And
you gotta love it.
The more
You
they
have to
keep
love
changing it, though, is the less people are, and they get more distant away from that connection. But anyway, that's the MLA's job.
Well, it is
To try to stay connected.
And right out the gate, when I was first elected, I made it a point, because you have to be in every community at every event, because you need to meet people, and people have to be comfortable reaching out to you, because sometimes they reach out to you with pretty sensitive issues.
Well, yes.
And they have to be able to know you and trust you, so it's important that you get out to those events. And it's funny, before I was elected, there were people in the riding I knew, obviously, because Mom's from a big part of it, and my wife's from Hoyt, and we're from Gary. And there was a gentleman that said to me, and this is very important in rural ridings, or all ridings, I think it's important anyhow. He said, are you prepared to go to all the funerals and visitations that Jack went to? And I said, yes, I am, because to me that was an important thing. And that's kind of part of the job that people don't know until they do it. Because there's no handbook for it, right?
And I mean, you can answer just the calls of people that call you, which are important, but there's a lot of people, as you said, that won't call because they don't call their MLA, but you're not hearing from them. So to be able to hear from those people, you go out to where they're at.
Well, what I've noticed, and probably you would have noticed as well, but I noticed though when I worked for you, we would have a lot of appointments in the office, but it was in Ormoc, and it was a smaller geographical area. At our office, we have some appointments on Monday. I say Monday because it's constituency day, right? Is when we hold our constituency meetings. But more often than not, people will just take me aside or have a quick private conversation at a breakfast or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it's coming to the point now where traveling to the junction to the office is a lot for some people. It's gas
but it's a more comfortable setting. It's out in the community. They don't have to make it a big broadcast. They've got an issue with you. I used to, in some MLAs, but I used to do that have regular times out in Cambridge Narrows and Gagetown office hours, and people could schedule too. So,
what I have found,
you do that. A
lot of people, they reach out to you on every platform, right? You get emails, text messages. There's a fair number of people that would have my cell number. I don't publish it, but a fair number of people have it.
Yeah.
Email, and then on social media platforms. So they send you direct messages on Twitter. I don't do my Instagram a lot, but when I do go on, I don't notice a lot of any messages in there. But Facebook Messenger is one.
Yeah, it's hard.
Well, my Messenger is it's never consistent. Like sometimes it'll work, sometimes it doesn't. Oh, it's a mess.
Really? Like they can go through and they don't come through?
Yeah.
Selective.
Yeah, and every now and again when that happens, I'll post it on Facebook and I'll say, look, don't send me Messenger. But here's the other issue with Messenger. It's not secure.
No, right.
In the past, I have had people, because it can be hacked, and I have had people message me a very serious private details of a file or tell me about somebody in the community that needs this certain help. And that's not for public viewing, but that stuff can be hacked.
Yes.
So please, people, do not send messages on Messenger that are of a private private nature.
Just say, I got some details I want to share with you. Can you follow back up with me?
Yeah.
Something like that. Or
call ask for my number.
Yeah.
But, even then, because my Messenger is not consistent, you can't rely on it. So email and phone number is always the best.
Yeah.
At Mon Bureau.
Yeah. Now, I know we're getting a lot of comments here.
What time is it here? 20:09.
We're getting a lot of comments From our aunt, my mom,
Oh,
Debbie's
my Aunt Luann- our Aunt
sister,
Luann's on.
Luann, and
Okay.
Luann was involved with politics way back when, and
Yes.
she,
She taught us
yeah, and she
by his book.
got us quite involved, and in that foundation they talk about the Carr legacy, Carr brothers. So people like her, who else? You know, what do you have to say? I guess it's hard. It's bittersweet, isn't it? You kind of feel happy, you kind of feel proud, satisfied. Do you feel? How are you feeling about it? Everything overall?
Well, I'm good right now because I had made my decision that yesterday was the day
Yeah.
that I would announce. My turmoil or my inner struggle was picking that day,
Oh, okay.
right? Up until then, I knew I was leaving.
Did you
for
the
now.
whole time? The whole time you did kind of pretty much decide. I know you said it,
I've
but
known
did,
for not a long time, month or two, that
Oh,
you know
okay.
what, it's time.
Okay.
It's time to and let somebody else try.
Whether it's this one or that one or this leader or that, like 10 years is still quite a
yeah.
while to be elected.
No, it is.
Like you say, it starts thinking, okay, I don't want to be like a long stretch, and you get to choose what you're going to do next.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I know exactly. So, and there's nothing wrong with letting somebody else give it a go
yeah,
and see if they can bring different perspectives, right?
Yeah.
And they would have a different representation style, I suppose. Everybody is different. They're like I say, there's no handbook for this job.
no,
But it is what it is. So deciding which day for me was really my challenge, because I also think maybe I was putting it off a little bit because you're kind of still connected and you feel attached and you feel like, well, nobody else can serve my constituents. But Jack did it before me, and Keith did it before him, and you did part of my riding before me, and
yeah, and people
you
do it
know,
after us.
yeah,
So I
Joan
mean, that's,
Kingston and Doug Harrison and Max White.
don't
go
forget Dr.
back to
McGrand,
Horace.
Dr.
Right.
McGrand
So
and Horace and Bill Duffy and
you go way back in time. Everybody's done
Leroy
it. They just done it in
Washburn,
a different way.
Don
So
Blaney, and yeah.
I was told one time that everybody's replaceable. So
Well, you're absolutely right.
I lost.
You're
when
absolutely right.
right. So,
You
so
are.
what happens?
Well, notice when you get out of cabinet, and we've been out of cabinet in and out, you've been in and out, and I was in and out, but your phone, people that call you changes.
Oh, yeah.
When you go from government to opposition, it's also very strange because it's like your calls change. Automatically, people know whether they want to call you or not.
I know.
So it's interesting.
It is. So anyhow, Sunday was the anniversary of Dad's death.
Yeah.
Right? It was 21 years since we lost him. And I was out, and I usually, if I'm not at an anniversary party or a birthday party or whatever on a Sunday, winter carnivals are coming up, so that's going to be fun. If I'm not doing that on a Sunday or at groceries or whatever, I'm in the woods walking.
Yeah.
And just walking out back.
Out
And
behind
that's
the
what I do.
bars.
So lately, this winter, it's been good walking.
Yeah.
And I walked and I walked and I walked and I sat down and I looked at my phone, and memories popped up of us posting over the years of Dad passing. And I looked at it and I thought, you know what? Tuesday's the day. And why I picked Tuesday is because, well, we're not in Fredericton on Mondays. Yeah. I was in Fredericton Tuesday for committee day. And then I thought it through and I thought, well, how do I leave? Do I take the high road and be positive?
Yeah.
Or do I create another big old turmoil like last year? And Dad would have did the positive on the high road. So
there are a lot of people would have, and it's good.
It's the easy way. And he always said that there's a lot of curves. There's a lot of a lot of curves in the road. So.
And would you say long road too?
Yeah, it can be very. Yes, it's a long road with very little turns.
Yeah,
That's how he would say
I
it.
know we get that. I know we get that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're
welcome. And he's right. He was always right. It's a long road, so you just never know, what the future holds and who you bump into next, and you just how you present yourself and hold yourself, and because we are elected representatives, And I don't think people want to see us fighting in public. I think they want us to be able to get along and produce, which isn't always the case, but you have to lead by that example. And that was kind of my goal. And we talked about this in 2020. We had Mike Murphy on one night, and we talked about, because I was excluded from cabinet then, and I was pissed.
And I think we talked about it like in 1995 when I first ran, and we talked about it in 1999 in terms of what type of representative do we want to be. And I know I always said, I didn't expect that I'd be there 19 years, but I always said, we're not going to be there forever, and we have to go back into the community. And, you know, Dad taught us, our mom taught us, grandparents taught us that, you know, we try to be the type of people that we want people to be to us.
You do, yeah.
You know, you try to live that. And we're not perfect, but we do still live in, in the community, and the community will be there as part of our community. So I think you must have some thoughts, do you, on what you might kind of look at doing next? I know you still got time to decide.
I actually even had an offer already yesterday.
I bet you have, and I hope you can call me back. I hope you can call me back soon on that.
You need somebody to file your files. Well, I just want to go back through. So Melissa, a player, is a big woohoo for the new road being done. Believe it when you see it.
Because did you make an announcement tonight? Or
no,
are we going
I
to see?
did not.
Oh, okay.
But that's on my parting gift of what I want done. It was on the list of requests. It was supposed to be done last year. The muddy was moved. So you just never know with any infrastructure project. There could be any reason at all for it to not happen. So just
okay.
I appreciate her enthusiasm, but just see what happens. I mean, it's a long ways out, but it was supposed to be done last year, so we'll see.
So the new
I actually had an offer yesterday on an interesting idea. I also have a couple ideas of my own that I'm working on now. Private sector, obviously, but maybe just do a little consulting. Maybe some more university courses are in line if I have time. I started taking online courses during COVID at community college and things like that to just brush up on my sciences and my calculus and things like that. And when I tell people that, they're like, really? You're crazy? But I enjoy that stuff. I didn't give it a good old serious attempt the first time through in 1990.
Well, you know what I like personally. If you're going to ask me what I like,
what do you like?
I do
what do you
like since politics. Well, since politics, I like giving advice to organizations or individuals. It's not really lobbying because I don't get paid for it, but I like it when people meet and they're like, "How do I get something done? How can we get this project done?"
Yeah.
And we're really always about bettering the community and getting projects done, and that's something that you really excel at in terms of this connect and that dot. But that's kind of fun to help people, whether it's new legislation, it's still making a change. So I see that you're still going to be involved somehow with people, with the community, with something to keep bettering their communities. So I don't think you're going very far away. If I have to make this prediction today.
I think you're right. There is, you have to be tenacious. You can't be, you have to just, if one angle doesn't work, you got to figure out what's the other. How do we get this accomplished? Another angle, and being an MLA and working for you and knowing around Jack has really taught me a lot over the years.
Well, remember
how to do that.
We mentioned about the Gary School, like when I was minister, but you were my executive assistant, so you got to count those years of you being involved and helping different projects as well. Then, and it was a priority, and I'm not going to shy away from, they might say politics, this or that. Well, it was a priority, and it's one of my major accomplishments when we were just little boys down around the corner with, our dad, a truck driver, and a mom, social assistants, then a single mom, and then, and then to think that we could be elected and become ministers and do this projects when other boys and girls in the community can see that too, and that's been such a huge joy and hard. But that project didn't happen on its own either, right?
No.
These things take maneuvering.
Yes.
And one thing you're never shy of is if there's there's a budget in place that by the jumpins we want our share here to get.
Exactly.
And same with New Brunswick when you look at the national level. When you were environment and local government and looking for programs with your national federal government, you did the same thing. If there's something we can get for New Brunswick, we're going to be there at the table to push for it.
Yeah, and that's our role. And sometimes, well, you got to put your elbows up a lot of times, and you got to just slam your hand on the table, and not everybody does that. Not all MLAs do that. But if you don't do it, somebody else is doing it.
And you got to know just when to do it and how to do it. And
you do.
Yeah.
I was telling a story today to a former colleague of ours about an issue that I had in the riding, and it was over. It was actually over the municipal boundaries. I guess it was, and one municipality was trying to crowd into another one a little too far, and I had some community stakeholders with me, and we went to a big office building in Fredericton, and I looked at them and I said, this could be my last day of work.
Yes.
Because we're not leaving here until we get what we want.
Yeah.
And that's just how it has to be sometimes.
Yeah, what Kelly Lamrock calls it.
When the people that you're talking to or that are debating with, when they understand that you're serious about that.
Yeah. Kelly Lamrock calls it three temper tantrum cards or three temper cards, where you can you can do that every now and then. You
you
know
can't
when,
use that card up all the time, though.
You got to know when you can use it, and you're serious about it.
Yeah.
Like mine was hospital beds at the Ormukto Hospital,
right.
remember? And
I know.
there were some conversations at the Premier's office and the Ministers of Health, and said, look, you're going to touch those beds, then you get a new MLA.
I know.
So,
and sometimes that's what you have to do.
That's fun.
And sometimes you pay the price for that.
You do with your colleagues sometimes, and sometimes with.
But they're doing it too.
They're doing it
or
too.
the good ones are, at least,
Yeah.
because it's dog eat dog world sometimes. And if you get elected and you're not prepared to do that, you're in the wrong business. Yeah. I think.
Well, you got to see. It's good, like you say, funerals, dinners, out meeting people. You got to do your work and get results too.
Well, you do.
So that's all part of the job. They talked about being a minister, being a riding MLA. There's lots of different aspects of putting your efforts. Some ministers are great at ministers, but they ignore their constituents. You can't do that. Some MLAs are great at being constituents, but they're not good at being a minister. So I mean, there's lots of stuff to juggle there.
No, exactly. No, I know. Wallace Carr has a comment. It's been great working with you both on the education files. Yes, Wallace has been involved for a long, long time in the community.
That's what inspires us.
People like that. He does. He gives. His daughter's been out of the Gary School. Well, she's a grown woman now and is an RCMP officer.
I know.
But he's still there with home and school and doing all that stuff. And, there's probably projects, I know there's projects that we wouldn't have been able to complete completely without people like him helping in the community too, right? Trevor Hansen was another one. And now Robin Hansen. You need those relationships in the community to be able to accomplish things you're working on. So we appreciate people like Wallace and the folks at the Lion Centers and all the community halls. Like it's team effort.
Yeah.
I was talking to another colleague of mine today that sometimes struggles with some mayors and councilors in their area. And you just don't accomplish anything that way. And I'm so fortunate that my Junction Mayor and Council, Tracy Mayor and Council, New Maryland Mayor and Council, and now the York-Sunbury South Mayor and Council, just great people to work with, and you just keep working with them, and that's how you accomplish things. But for my colleague, some of these people and that person's riding are just they're not helpful. Well, and that makes it difficult.
It does. Sometimes you can be part of that problem, right? When there's issues, as they say, look in the mirror. But you brought that type of collaboration when you were ministers of local government, Minister of Environment, and Minister of Transportation, your stakeholders, your organizations. And that's that same approach that you do in the community, we bring to the provincial level. And that's what seems to be missing. And your problem with some of this turmoil last year was a collaborative approach, win-win. We like win-win. Some people see win-win as a weakness, whereas most collaborators and community-minded people look at win-win as being good for all. You can all win.
Everybody can win
by working together.
Just work through it.
Yeah.
And a lot of this, but it takes longer sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes time's not on the side, but it's worth it to do it that way, and then everybody comes out of it with a little bit of a bonus. And I think we could have probably on 713 got close to a resolution that everybody was happy with, but
it didn't have to be as complicated. And like I said about the $300 application, we
right.
on purpose make things more complicated for agendas. But, I read that. It's like, okay, there's something maybe could just be tweaked a little. Let's have a sit down and talk about that and just, make sure we're all on the same page. Personally, I don't think it was that far off.
I don't know how. Well, it's needed. $300 is needed.
I was back on 713. That's what I meant.
I thought you were talking about the application.
Well, I did mention that too, but 713, it didn't take such a huge...
Yeah, I'd love to get into Jamie Nason's question, but we're going to be out of time here in like 2 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
But how do you feel about our political... So we're going to touch this one really, really quickly because you've talked about this before.
A lot, yeah.
But how do you both feel about our political parties working together versus the opposition only ever opposing? And... we have seen in the past where there's been all-party consensus moving things forward, and there's different things. But
when he first started, when Blaine first started, he had a collaborative approach, and that seemed
we were in a minority though.
And he needed to, and then
I enjoyed that.
Yeah, so did the people, and so did he get a larger majority. But I really think it's anytime soon in the past and going forward is to discuss getting rid of political parties altogether. There's such a small number of people that are tied to a political party. You look at Nunavut and Northwest Territories, and I think a dream would be is that every MLA is an independent, just like at City Council, and you all have to work together based on whatever the issue is. That's putting the power back into the hands of your representative and out of the hands of one person in the Premier's office. And whatever political stripe you have, it's that one unelected person usually, and then the Premier, but the unelected person that seems to pull all the strings and they're not even elected. We had the minister in from another country a few weeks ago, and we talked about the exact same thing in Australia. These people that seem to get the power and the control, but they're not the people, and so. So anyway,
exactly.
The system as it's set up now is probably the best we've got and whatever, but there's still something wrong, and it may take a long time yet before we get rid of the party system and work for individuals and independents in the ridings. I think it'd be interesting.
Well, maybe it would create more voter engagement too.
Maybe
because the numbers get stuck at 66%.
Or maybe the proportional rep, but everyone always says change and opposition. That's one thing that stays the same. It's change and opposition, but when they get elected,
I don't like the idea of proportional representation. Well, but we could talk about that more in depth at another time. But consensus governments and non-party governments is maybe something that has to be looked at someday down the road.
Maybe because
All right. Well, we've jabbered on for almost an hour now. How about that, eh? We have no problem filling time and talking, do we?
No, we don't.
But anyhow.
And the comments have been great. The participation tonight has been great.
It's been good. And we'll talk about more of this stuff again.
Yeah.
In the future. I know we will. And I'm sure Jack will have some questions when he gets back on the show. We'll have him on.
Well, Jeff, thank you for everything. I mean, we don't say thank you and good job enough, but we always said if we can't pat each other on the back, well, then who can, right? But, good job. We're proud of you. Thank you for everyone for watching, participating, and the good comments, and also the constructive comments. By working together, we can be better, and
exactly.
Good stuff.
And don't forget, for everybody, it was in my statement, but I'll still be the MLA until the next election is called.
Right.
So
that's right.
368-2938. Rosie is there to answer your questions.
Yeah.
No, seriously. I'm not quitting. I'm just gonna stop when a new person gets elected.
Just doing something a little different for a while. Great. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.
Have a great night.
Good stuff.